Hi, this is Shane Starr, and although I wasn't planning a video today, I think it's appropriate that I do one after watching a series of videos from Eric of Typing with Famous People, someone who I greatly respect in the typology community. The two videos he made that inspired this one are called Personality Type and Truth, and the other one is Can We Fit Everyone into 16 Boxes? And then he did a third one this morning about can we improve our cognitive functions, but I think that one deserves its own video for last. So I just wanted to say, after watching his videos, I wanted to throw my own amateur 2 cents into the topic. And I think to answer any kind of questions regarding truth and typology, we have to ask with the utmost humility the great Pontius Pilate question, and that is, what is truth? And I think in this case, as well in all cases, I think we do best to be brilliant at the basics, and instead of coming up with some complicated esoteric version of truth, we simply look to what is defined in such a way that people from all walks of life can understand it. And in this case, I would refer to the Oxford Dictionary version of truth, and that's, to paraphrase, it is: truth is a claim that corresponds with reality. In other words, something we say that corresponds to the actual existing being of the thing. Simply put, does your claim resonate, or does it correspond with reality? And this isn't about my truth or your truth, but the truth. And truth is simply what is. Okay? So with regards to typology, and particularly 16 types, I think good theory, or at least what begins as good theory, starts to slip down a slippery slope and into a rabbit hole where cognitive functions become these most inner modes of perception and being, such that we aren't able to reach them to examine them more fully. Because if we're not looking at actions, we're looking at inner motivations, desires, subjective ways of viewing the world and interpreting it. They might mean more and more to us the deeper we go, but that as the subjective factor grows, the objective factor, which is truth, diminishes. And this is I think, one of the fundamental questions and problems of typology, and that is, the truer it is, the less meaningful it is, with the quintessential example being mathematics. You can get absolute truth with mathematics, 2 + 2 = 4, everywhere, all the time. However, what can we do with that? We can't do a whole lot with 2 + 2 = 4. On the other hand, if we were to have a theory that explains our deepest desires, why, if I don't match my pocket square with my shirt perfectly, I have a bad day, and I have some existential realization like, this is what I've been trying to find my whole life. That might be very important to me personally, but those types of realizations aren't really what we would call truth, because although you can have a fact on one side, and that is, matching something, when we're trying to analyze the desires, the whys as to that, anything regarding love, hopes, dreams, hates, fears, we lose that clear and distinct aspect of truth that's important when making claims that we purport to be true. Okay, things that we could say, this is an objective truth. So I think the key here is that we want typology to have truth to it. And in order to have truth, we have to have a claim that corresponds to reality. And in order to have that, we need claims that can be verified or falsified. So if you make a claim, I'm with her because I really love her or something, you can get close to finding reasons that sort of work in a pragmatic sense, but you're not going to get objective truth, because you're lacking a fact. Okay, so back to typology, when we have habits and ways of being that are obvious to the objective world, that being regular observers, we can make some sort of claims like this person is always on time, 8 years at work and has not been late once ever, which that would be me. But really, that's the kind of claim that's an objective truth that we can then use to say what one of these 16 boxes or which group of these 16 boxes would such a statement, if this premise is true, which it is, where does this correspond with the types that we've defined, and where are they falsified by the types we've defined? And that's what makes trait theory, in my view, better than taking deep dives into, innermost roots and desires, subjective claims that might be existentially powerful, but because they cannot be proven, as in verified or falsified, they're less scientific. We can't ascribe the quality of truth to them. So my claim is that somewhere in between absolute truth in mathematics and existential meaning in our innermost hearts, I think that's where good typology lies. And I think, unfortunately, most people take it too far into the subjective realm, and that's where they lose truth. And what this looks like in real life is a series of exceptions. Well, I'm late to work all the time, but I think I'm an INFJ because, the reason I'm late, it's because I care about other people or this or that. It's like, no, if you're late all the time, you're not a J type. I'm sorry. Like, with trait space theory, you can make that claim and just say, nope, no chance of you being an INFJ if you're habitually late all the time, because a J type values being on time. All your excuses are shared by the rest of the world, and they're not all late all the time, but you are. Therefore, I'm excluding that as a possibility for you. To take that farther, you could go, all four coins: extroversion, introversion, in the regular common sense understanding of the word, not philosophical typological jargon of subject and object and all of that, but just simply put, are you energized by people or by being alone? Do you like crowds? Do you like Disneyland? Do you like parties? Or are you the type to sneak out early or make an excuse not to go? Would you rather go out or read a book? Everyone can answer yes on both sides, but if you analyze it, you can figure out, ask some friends, they'll tell you what you are, pretty quickly. It's really not that hard. Next, sensing or intuition. Is your focus on objects? Things like aesthetics, order. Do you keep your car clean? Do you take care in how you dress? Or are your concerns more ideational, and harmonizing your ideas and inner concepts and stuff? If you live in that land inside your head, and you don't care that much about objective realities, and you're probably an intuitive, right? And people, those of us who care about structural order and aesthetics and practical concerns as opposed to ideational concerns, then you would be a sensor. Feeling or thinking. I think this is where socionics does itself a disservice, is they've made those almost two sides of the same coin in the name of judgment functions, when really, if you ask a third grader what the difference between thinking and feeling is, they can tell you. Ask a typology expert the difference between TI and FI, and they'll be able to answer it, but after much thought and going over theory and trying to really think it over, which is categorized into which realm. It's really not that hard. If you make decisions based on your feelings about them, you're a feeler. If you make decisions based on pragmatic concerns, what's going to be, correct in terms of practicality as opposed to desire, then you're going to be a thinker. And ideally, we can harmonize those into both, but at the same time, that's where I think people get themselves into trouble, because then they're like, well, did I pick this because I wanted it, or because I thought it, or I rationalized it because that's what I really wanted, or I knew this was the best thing, so I commandeered my feelings to fit objective reality as I noticed it. If you don't overthink it, you'll know which one of these you are. But again, going down that rabbit hole of typology, the waters get murkier the deeper you dive, as opposed to more clarity. And coming full circle on this, J&P, I think that's the easiest one. Are you structured? Do you care about being on time? Do you like to have things, do you have any kind of OCD? Do you keep a clean room, clean office, clean car? Do you schedule things? Do you like lists of things to do? Or do you like to play things as they come and take it easy and be spontaneous and not tie yourself down to a rigid schedule? It's pretty easy. If you find yourself in the middle on any of these, ask someone who knows you. They'll be able to tell you pretty easily which side of the coin you're on. I think all that's needed to find objective truth when we're making these kinds of statements is a clear definition of functions and types, and from there we can use traits to eliminate possible types and bring some other possibilities into focus. And again, when considering a traits-based model, the big five, the much mocked, criticized, and misaligned 16 personality types, the advantage they have over the others is their beauty is in their simplicity. You look at behavior, you use behavior to type. It's pure data, not what one says or thinks or pretends or wish they were, but you just look at what one actually does. Look at the evidence. To take a page out of Jean-Paul Sartre's Existentialism, we are the sum of our actions, nothing less, nothing more. You are what you do. In sports, this looks like, people trying to make excuses for their team. It's like, no, you are defined by your record. You are what your record says you are. Don't tell me if you're in an NFL football team and your record's 5-11. Well, we're really a good team, but we got this break or that break. No, if your record's 5-11, you're not a playoff team. You're headed towards a tumultuous off season, right? You are what your record says you are. We are the sum of our actions. In typing myself or others, I don't like hearing, well, there's this, but my exception, because this is how I really feel about it. So it looks like a B, or C, but it really isn't, because it's like, no, it really is, because that's what you do. All right. I know this model isn't exciting or sexy, but it's unalterated data backed by evidence, verifiable and falsifiable, about as scientific as we can get in typology. And from that, we can approach something we could call truth. And depending on my results in a couple of conversations I have going on about whether or not it's possible to improve some of our cognitive functions, or at least their appearance of working better in the real world, to the extent that we can improve our functions, I would say that truth can then set us free. That's all I have for today. Peace out.